blessed be, and welcome back to Nine Wands. I'm Akasha Rockland, and I wanted to talk today about my kundalini awakening experience. This is kind of a long story, so I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. I am having mint Moroccan tea, which is one of my favorites. It's a green tea with spearmint added, and I like to add a little bit of vanilla almond milk and some agave. So good. If you're not vegan, or if you consume dairy, it's really good to do honey instead of the agave, but such a treat. It's like dessert before dinner. So it's only about 6:30 here on the West Coast, and it's beautiful outside. I'm sitting on my upstairs deck, and I actually filmed a video for you guys the other day just about daily practice, and for some reason it filmed with no sound, which was really weird. But I decided that maybe my guides were asking me to talk about something else. And so this literally just came to me about 15 minutes ago. As I said before, I've been working a lot with a dragon guide, and she came to me again in dream, and she led me into the fairy realm again with my mirror port key, and I met there with, I don't know who this guide being was, but it was looked female, elven maybe, and came out of the wood wearing like either really dark green or black, very, very saturated color, and she put her hands on my heart and my belly, and she placed a crystal on my heart, and it was shaped like a diamond, and it looked like a moonstone. It looked like this moonstone I'm wearing, and then it turned into the seven-pointed fairy star, and the moonstone kind of condensed to the center of it. That was a really interesting vision, and she told me that my heart was opening even wider, that my experiences were deepening, that my psychic visions were getting more vibrant, which they have been. And it reminded me of my kundalini awakening experience. And so I felt really called to talk about that today when I thought about that dream traveling that I did last night, astral traveling in my dreams. And so in 2004, I was in a horrible car accident. I mean, totaled my car. A person ran a light, and I couldn't stop in time at the intersection to not hit him head on. And I had one of those cars where the seatbelt opens with the door. They don't make them anymore. I think I had a Maxima maybe. And so we hit, the airbag hit me in the face, and my arm was up, luckily. It stopped it from burning my face. And we were in the middle of a super busy intersection in Los Angeles. And this was nighttime. I was heading to a friend's birthday party, and I had another friend in the passenger seat. And, oh, a hummingbird. So I got out of the car. I almost felt propelled out of the car. And I felt this, like, I'll back up. So when the airbag hit me, I felt this pressure and this, like, pop in my right eye. And scared the crap out of me. I thought that my eye fell out. And so I laugh now. Trigger warning. I should have said this in the beginning. Trigger warning. Big old trigger warning for accident survivors, if really horrific car accidents freak you out, you may want to fast forward a little bit. I'm probably only going to talk about this for another 3 minutes, this part of it. So I'm crawling around in the intersection, holding my right eye, looking for my eyeball, basically. Crawling around in the intersection at night, trying to find my eyeball so that the surgeons could put it back if the police came or whatever. I was totally in shock. I saw like liquids leaking from my car, and I thought, oh my gosh, the car's gonna explode. So I had forgotten all about my passenger until this moment. And so I crawl around to the other side. My friend is in there, and I'm like, I'm gonna call her Julia. Julia, you have to get out of the car. The car's gonna blow up. And she's like going, and I was like, Julia, you have to get out. The car's gonna explode. And she just kept doing this high-pitched, like, shaky hum, and I couldn't figure it out, what was happening to her. And she was yanking on the seatbelt, and I realized she was locked in. So I pushed the seat back to try to release her, and y'all, sorry, this is a little graphic, but she bit into her tongue. So her teeth were already she had already bitten into her tongue, and then when the seat rolled back and hit, she bit deeper in. So she's totally fine now. The tip of her tongue grew back, but she did bite it. And so the ambulance came, took us to the hospital, and oh, I missed the best part. So when the police were trying to get us both out of the car, they were cutting her out of the seatbelt. They asked me, like, what's happened to your eye? And I said, my eye fell out. I have to find my eye. And so one of the policemen was like, let me see. And I said, no, it's really gross. You can't see. Just help me find my eye so they can put it back. And he said, let me see it. So I finally show it to him. He's like, you have your eye. It's there. I can see it. And then he flashed the light, and he told me to count, fingers. And I was like, oh my God, I thought. He's like, were you wearing contact lenses? I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you're just in shock. That was the contact lens, probably, when the airbag hit you, you have both your eyes. A friend came and brought me some peanuts, like salt is supposed to help. So we get taken to the ambulance. Long story sort of short, my friend gets her tongue totally fixed, totally is fine. And the weird thing is about tongues is they grow back. So the tip that she bit off grew back. I ended up dislocating my kneecap and having to have surgery. So at the time I was working for MAC. I was working in makeup, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day in high heels. And my friend was also working in makeup, and my surgeon said, you can't work right now. You need to be at home. You need to be on disability. You need to rest, let your body, really relax, and, we'll do surgery and blah, blah, blah. So I go home to wait for surgery, and up until this point, I had done yoga kind of off and on. I didn't have a daily practice at all. It was literally as I felt like doing it. I meditated sometimes. I would say that at this point in my life, I was really kind of getting into my witchy path, and so I was doing a lot more studying of witchcraft and herbs and fairies, and so I was going all the way down that path, and I had only dipped my toe into Hinduism and Buddhism, and so this was, I believe this was still 2004, yeah. And Hurricane Katrina hit, and I still can see it happening. And a friend of mine who has family in Louisiana was really, really scared and was looking for people. And I was at home, and I just felt like there's got to be something else. Like, why is this happening? And I had been listening to Erykah Badu, the Mama's Gun album, and she was singing, Didn't You Know, Didn't You Know? And I don't know why that song kind of took me into my spirit, but it did. And I felt like I need to see what this is about. Something in me is having a reaction. I feel like the earth is asking me for something. I can't really put words to it, but something was calling me. And I went to this bookstore. It's now closed. It's called the Bodhi Tree. I went to the Bodhi Tree. Excuse me. And sorry if I'm shivering. It's getting a little bit cold out here now. Right. I've got this little guy. So I went to the Bodhi Tree, and I was just kind of walking around and asking the question, why am I here? Why am I here? Spirit, why am I here? And I passed an aisle, and there was a blue book just kind of barely peeking out of the shelf. And it felt like just little tendrils from the book just reached out and grabbed my hands and just pulled me to it. And I pulled it out, and it is called Remember, Be Here Now by Ram Dass. And I've mentioned this book before as the catalyst to my spiritual awakening. Excuse me. So I bought the book. It costs $14.14, and anywhere you go in the world, you will see this book, and it's $14.14. It's blue, and I should go grab it. It's blue, and it's very psychedelic. It was written in the 60s, late 60s, maybe early 70s, but I do believe late 60s. So it's really psychedelic looking. The pages are like brown recycled, like really hard paper, and they have all of these like beautiful psychedelic drawings all over it. And it was transcribed from talks that he gave to his folks. And so Ram Dass is this beautiful spirit who went to India in the 60s and had an awakening experience. He had done all these psychedelic drugs and went to India and had an awakening experience, not on drugs, and did not need the drugs anymore. And has inspired so many people on this path. And so he was giving a talk, and it was transcribed onto this book. Remember, Be Here Now. So I bought the book. I went home and made some tea, and I got some like fruit, and I took a blanket and a bunch of pillows, and I made a big like pallet on the ground and in my bedroom, and I kind of made like my own little ashram. I waited till it was pretty late at night and everyone was going to bed, and I put on some really low kind of like no instrumental music, nothing too attention grabbing, and I was one with the earth at that time, if you know what I mean. Cannabis. And so I definitely got my smoke on, and I took it as medicine, and I said, whatever is meant for me to receive, may I be open. And when you use mantra with herb, it's a completely different experience. It leaves the realm of let me get high and eat snacks and watch TV, and it becomes this transformative experience, and that's what I had. I read the book from cover to cover, and at a point it felt like the book was reading me. And I went from this like beauty guru who was doing makeup and pursuing acting and, wanting to be a star and all these things, to literally overnight, I just became one with the universe. And in an instant, everything about me changed. My journey changed. My path changed. I met music. Um, when I finished reading the book, um, I walked out of my bedroom and I felt like the air hit my face for the first time. And I could smell, scents from the kitchen. And I ate strawberries. And it was like the first time I had ever tasted strawberries. And I really learned how to be present and savor every single moment in my life. And it has changed everything. So that was the beginning. That was the catalyst. After that experience, I literally spent the next year. So I had surgery, and then I had to take a year off. I couldn't work for a year because my knee surgery was healing so slowly. So my whole day consisted of, I had to get up, I had to go to physical therapy. I'd try to do some walking, try to do like a tiny bit of yoga, but that was kind of all I could do. I couldn't really move a lot. And so for a whole year, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I would chant and I would meditate. And I started, because he has a section in the book that's a cookbook for a spiritual life, or it's a cookbook for a sacred life. And there's a bunch of mantras there and instructions on how to have sadhana. Sadhana is spiritual practice. And so I did everything in that book. I got up every day, like I said, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would start my day with, I'd have herb, and I would do sacred mantras. And then I would chant. I would meditate for probably an hour between all of this chanting and the meditating. Then I'd spend 30 minutes to an hour doing hatha practice, hatha yoga. I'd go for walks. I listened to holy music. I think I stopped listening to music with words in it. Like I was literally just listening to raga chants and, not chants, but like raga instrumental music. And I got really into like down tempo and chill out groove and shoegaze music and just things that you didn't have to think a lot about, but were very vibratory. I would go for these long walks and I'd almost get lost. And little by little, I started to feel these strange sensations in my body. Heat that would rush from like the small of my back all the way up to the top of my head. And several times I passed out. Like I would just like, woo! Like I couldn't hold myself together. And this one particular experience, I was in Target and it happened. And it was hard to stay standing up, and I kind of lost time, and I felt so dizzy, and someone tried to talk to me, and I could see his face, but he looked like patterns of energy. My third eye went, and I started to see, like if I looked at trees, I would see the aura of the tree. I could see this pink really vibratory like cast around the tree. When I talked to people, I mean, like everything was just like, Namaste, sister. Like I just went to this whole other place in my spirit, and it was the best time of my life, and the scariest. I mean, there were times when I thought I was stepping out of my body. Like I couldn't feel any sensations in my body. I was just awareness. I was doing a practice called Who Am I? And you keep asking, who am I? And every time you have an answer, it's not right? You just keep saying, who am I? Who am I? And at a point, you stop saying, who am I? And you're actually just observing. I took on the witness, which you can look that up in Hinduism and yoga. Taking on the witness is where you step out of your own ego perception, and you take on a witness from whom all of the world is viewed. And the witness is a mantra. It's whatever mantra you connect with. Some people, it's Om Mani Padme Hum, which is I bow to the jewel in the lotus, which is the Sacred Heart. For me, it was So Hum, which is I am. I am that. And Tatawamasi, that thou art. Tatawamasi it can be followed by Ram. Tatawamasi Ram, which is that thou art God. Everything I see is divine. Everything I see is divinity in its fullness. And so there's no way that you can live every moment as if you are in a heaven on earth without it bleeding into your life. I started to feel like I was dying because I just had no desire. I ate vegan, but not because I chose to. It was literally like the things I was attracted to were fruits and vegetables, and sometimes I'd have like some kind of vegan burger patty, but for the most part I was just eating really light, and I got so high. I had to stop having the herbal medicine because I was so high, like spiritually, that was causing me to have like paranoia. So I had to stop doing that, and I just lived in this really high connected way. I'm telling you, I would look up at the sky and it would feel like I was there, and I'd have to be like, whoa, and then bring myself back down. The heat didn't stop. The heat that was going from my spine up to my head, that was kind of making me dizzy and passing out. Sometimes I couldn't taste my food. I would eat things and I just couldn't taste what I was eating, and so I would stop eating. I couldn't eat anything without blessing it. I would set my food out onto the altar and I would offer it first and bless it before I would have it. I was still doing magic at this time, but I stopped doing spells because there was nothing to change. There was nothing to change. I was just fully absorbed. I was in samadhi. And I went to Coachella in 2006. Yes, this whole experience took almost 2 years. I went to Coachella in 2006, and that was one of the highest experiences of my life. I saw Damian Marley perform. I saw Kanye West when he was like such a baby, and Common, and Depeche Mode. You guys, Depeche Mode shut it down. They shut it down. And I was swaying so hard and listening to this music that I grew up loving. And I had this total out-of-body experience. And I was on the stage. And then I was back in my body in the audience. And then I was on the stage. I was back in my body. And I was like, wow. And I looked up at the moon, and it felt like it descended right on my head. And I said, yes. Yes. And I knew that I was being asked to change course. And that music was going to become a big part of my journey. And I said, yes. And I levitated. And I'm very, very serious. I levitated. I felt my body kind of go like that. And I was wearing a long skirt, a long dress. And so I was dancing, I was swaying, and I was talking to the moon. And I realized that I could no longer feel the ground. But my skirt was swishing. And I could see my friend. And I was like, oh. I knocked on the ground. And I was like, whoa! And I had to kind of will myself back in, and then I sat down, and I'm telling you, I sat down for an hour or longer. Because I knew I was like, I need to ground right now. During this time, I had all of these experiences where I would be talking to someone, or they would be talking to me, and this same witness thing was happening where I heard a conversation happening and I heard responses coming from my body, but I could not make any connection with my mouth moving. My psychic awareness got even deeper. I started to have visions. This is when mediumship came to me, when I started to perceive disembodied, passed on spirits who wanted to communicate with others. And I won't get into people's personal stories, but I did some mediumship work for friends. And it was really powerful and really impactful and a little bit scary because I wasn't ready for that. But it was coming. And all of these psychic gifts, just like when I did my psychic video, and it seemed like I was basically saying I have every psychic gift known to man almost. That's why. Because my kundalini went pop, and everything, my third eye went whoo, and then I just became this vessel. And I just kept saying yes, whatever came, yes. Okay, what am I supposed to do with this now? Okay. And one day I was driving and I found a guitar. I passed a guitar on the street. And I went in. I was like, how much is that guitar? And they said, $15. So, excuse me. I'll take it. And I took the guitar home and I just started playing. I know what the hell I was doing, you guys, but I was just letting the spirit kind of move through me. And I started writing songs for the first time ever in my life. I've written poetry my entire life. I've sung my entire life, but I've never written a song. And I started to write songs out of nowhere. And long story, quite long actually, now that I'm looking at the time. I had to go back to work, going back into the world, as they call it. So I had to go back into the world. And I started kind of grounding some of these experiences. And I moved to the Bay and ended up moving in with the folks who became my bandmates. And I have pursued music. I don't want to say pursued. I have been a conduit for music to move through me. And I was guided to start this channel. I was guided to start my tarot business. I even hate calling it a business, but I was guided to move into shamanic space. And all of these experiences finally made sense to me, why I had to have those experiences. And it sounds really, really cool, but I'm telling you, when it was happening, I was freaked out. I was really high and really, having a wonderful time and also really freaked out. I used to go for these long walks barefoot in the neighborhood, and I got followed home by a gang member one day. And I literally just kept looking at him and saying, Tatawamasi. And he would stop walking and look at me. And then I would say, Namaste. And I would walk away. And then he would follow me a little more. And I would stop and I would look at him. And I would say, Soham. And I literally just kept naming him God until he stopped following me. And then eventually I looked at him and I said, enough. And he went home. Now, later, when I told my housemate, she was like, that was a gang member. I won't tell that whole story here, but it's a crazy story. And I had so many of these experiences where I was literally living, my food was oneness. And I was living in such integration with spirit that I felt invincible. And I've since been able to ground those experiences. But I look back at that time and I think, how am I alive? Some of the things that happened. And I still like will look at people and I see auras and I see vibratory patterns around their bodies. And when I allow myself to be really, really open to it, it's a precious, amazing experience. And so I'm sure there's some other crazy things that I experienced, but yeah, headaches, dizzy spells, hot flashes, spontaneous psychic knowings. I looked at someone and knew that she had lost a baby, and we got into a deep conversation, and she told me that she had had a miscarriage, and I was like, how did I know that? So I started having these really spontaneous psychic moments. So that is a humbly jumbly video, but I just wanted to talk about this and share that experience with you. And if you are having ascension symptoms, if you are having awakening symptoms, if you think you might be having kundalini awakening experience, don't freak out. Just don't freak out. That's the best thing I can say, is to pray yourself into peace. Pray yourself into integration. And at some point, it does stop being as disruptive as it feels, and it starts to kind of be integrated in the way you move and breathe and live. And now I'm able to go to work full time and still have all these experiences, but I'm not like, I'm not crazy, like I'm not being hospitalized. And I don't need herb. I don't need marijuana anymore. I mean, I think it's a fantastic medicine. I think that some folks take it past where it's medicine and it becomes something else. And I do believe that when you use it as medicine, it can take you into really deep self-awareness. I don't want to use this as like an advertisement for herb in any way, because I know that, people are super, super against that and super, super for that. And I know that it's legal now and whatever. I don't want to get tied up in any of that. All I'm saying is that was my experience. And now my experience is continuing to grow and to broaden without the aid of anything other than literally just candles and incense and beautiful chilly air and all the greenery around me. I'm going to give you a very quick, odd view, but this is my backyard. So I'm surrounded by trees, surrounded by big, beautiful, luscious trees and bright orange little poppy flowers. And okay, I've probably made everyone dizzy now, so I am going to bid you all a beautiful beautiful Wednesday, or sorry, it's Tuesday, a beautiful Mars Day. And I hope that wherever you are on your journey, on your path to remembering your wholeness, remembering your perfection, that you make room, that you stop and allow that process to happen however it needs to happen for you, that you stop and you breathe and you let it happen, because you will love who you become. Okay, so that's all. Blessed be. Namaste. And I will see you all again really soon.